Welcome to Citizens Forum. My name is Walt McGinnis, and today I have with me Ian Jessup. Ian is the, I guess, the ex-talk show host at CFAX. Ian had been at CFAX for a number of years, no longer employed there. We might talk about that a little bit.
You can say I was fired. That's fine.
Oh, well, Ian was fired. But anyway, he's moved on. He's doing a bunch of interesting things, one of which is he has started what's called the Cannabis Health Radio, and it's a podcast that's being that he's using. And Ian is going to be talking with us today about the medicinal uses of marijuana and how marijuana could be integrated more into the healthcare of our society. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you.
I hope you were appropriately introduced.
Oh yeah, it was fine.
So, okay, first thing, let's talk about cannabis, usage for medicinal purposes. How much science is behind that idea? How much research has gone on that really can support to say, okay, taking this drug will help these conditions?
Well, there's a lot of science behind it,
Yeah.
and I was reading the other day that there are over 100 studies now that prove that cannabis actually kills cancer.
Yeah.
But when I was fired from CFAX in June, I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And some people suggested do a podcast. I said, okay, well, how do you make any money on a podcast?
Yeah.
Now I realize it's difficult to make money on a podcast. But I used to interview once a month Corey Yelland, who is the co-host with me on Cannabis Health Radio. And a number of years ago, she had anal canal cancer. And she went to the doctor and they wanted to do radiation. And she said, well, what will that do? And they said, well, it'll burn your pubic bone, it'll close your orifices, but we can take you upstairs and deal with that. And she said, no thanks. So the oncologist was somewhat upset and said, you'll be dead within 2 to 4 months.
Wow.
So she went home and researched 12 to 14 hours a day and discovered cannabis oil, started taking cannabis oil, and a year later when she went in for a checkup, she was cancer-free. And so what she has done, and this was 5 years ago, what she has done during that time is help people through Facebook with dealing with their health issues. And so that's what we do on the program. Our radio program, our podcast, is on every weekday, 5 days a week. And we interview people for about 30, 35, 40 minutes. And we've had some remarkable stories. Matter of fact, this week, we talked to a fellow in Ontario who suffered some severe injuries in a work-related accident. He was a welder, and a piece of steel was going to fall on his feet, and he went to catch it and tore his rotator cuffs in both arms and did some serious damage. And he was on some pain medications for years, over 20 years. And they were just causing all sorts of problems for him. He was throwing up every day, he was gaining weight, he was unhealthy, and he contracted liver cancer. And he thought,
on top of all that.
On top of all that. So he thinks, what am I going to do? So he starts researching cannabis oil. He starts taking it. And I think he said within a number of months, he was clear of cancer.
Yeah.
So we talk to people about their issues, about kids with epilepsy, people with cancer, people with MS, people with muscular dystrophy. And it's absolutely remarkable. Some fantastic stories.
Now, with the MS, I mean, are doctors accepting that this is a bona fide treatment for MS, or is it something that always has to happen outside of the mainstream medical world?
Well, Dr. Dave Hepburn of Victoria is teaching doctors across Canada about the medical benefits of cannabis. Because I think doctors are no different than the general public, is that they've been brainwashed, as we have for the last 80 years, that somehow cannabis is dangerous, it's going to kill us, reefer madness will strike us all. But unbeknownst to a lot of members of the public, cannabis has been around for thousands of years. When it was made illegal in the United States in 1937, one organization stood up and said, no, we want to continue using it. And that was the American Medical Association.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it has been propagandized, stigmatized that somehow
Yeah.
if you use marijuana, you're going to be a drug addict.
You know, it's so wild because, like, and I haven't researched this, but I know just from some of the numbers you hear, like from the United States, on, say, there's around 200,000 people die every year in the United States from the misuse of prescribed medicines in hospitals. This is like they're under care,
Yep.
and people are dying. Thousands and thousands of people are dying. Doesn't seem to be a big issue. And when you talk about the use of drugs and how it's prescribed and how people are medicated.
Yeah.
Now you got some hard figures here. People are dying here. It's serious. On the other hand, when you talk about the use of marijuana, which is fairly widespread now, and a lot of recreational use of marijuana as well as much use for health conditions, why aren't we seeing these numbers and reports in the paper like the fentanyl crisis? Like the fentanyl crisis is another issue. It's like, this is deadly. This drug is absolutely dangerous. And the reporting on that, but on the same time, you have the use of marijuana, and they say, oh my gosh, this is bad, and you can get all these bad side effects, but we're just not seeing any results of that, any negative results.
Do you know how many people have died of taking too much cannabis?
You're going to tell me?
0. Throughout history, nobody has died because you can't die from it. Dave
Yeah.
Hepburn told me that in the brainstem there are enough receptors there to kill you. In order to die from taking too much cannabis, you'd have to consume 1,500 pounds in 15 minutes.
Wow.
So the only way it's going to kill you is if it's a bale and it falls on you.
Yeah.
But you can't die from it.
Yeah.
But it's still illegal. It's still reefer madness. Somehow we got to stay away from it.
But there's a dichotomy there. I mean, we have this acceptance now and the movement towards legalization and all that. So there's a shift that way. We have to admit that the regulators are sort of moving in the right way. But this other world, the fear of cannabis and all that, seems to exist side by side. There seems to be almost like a wall between these two points of view.
Do you know what has harmed the legalization of cannabis? I think it is the stoner mentality.
Yeah.
Everyone, when people talk about getting stoned,
Yeah.
it's very much like prohibition in the 20s.
Yeah.
And people say, well, let's bring back alcohol so we can all go out and get drunk. Well, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But there are people who don't like to smoke it. They can vape it.
Yeah.
There are people who don't want to do either, and they want to take the cannabis oil for its medicinal benefits. And a lot of people are taking cannabis oil. They're making their own.
Yeah.
And I think there are special interests involved here. The special interests are the drug companies and the liquor companies, because according to some statistics, in the states in the U.S. where cannabis is legal, both recreationally and medicinally, the alcohol consumption has decreased.
Okay.
And the use of opiates has decreased.
That should be good news, shouldn't it?
It should be good news, right? It should be. But because of special interests, and when the United States during the election in November had their vote on which states approved medical cannabis and which states approved recreational cannabis, special interests, which included the alcohol industry, tried to get people to vote no.
So, and you can expect that. I mean, I think there's always going to be these competing interests that always happen, that we have to always move through. And usually it's a political decision that has to move something forward. And I think, from what I'm seeing is, and what my concern is of course, is that like the way they outlawed the use of growing of tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Tobacco, the product that if you use correctly and as they recommend, will kill you sooner or later. But the government took that product and said, okay, we're going to just legalize it, the use of growing of it by the very special people. And my concern is we're going to have another situation where the growing of cannabis is going to be just from a very small group of corporations, and who probably make massive profits off it. And still, we really won't have the assurances of quality control and all of the things that we're looking for. Maybe not even have, like, for instance, you see marijuana or cannabis that's being grown that has no THC in it, that is being used as therapy.
High CBD, yeah.
Yeah, and my concern is we're going to have limited choices in the future because of this kind of commercialization and keeping those who can grow it into a very narrow group.
Dr. Dave Hepburn has a great line that when he talks to doctors and he talks to the public, he says, how many people in this room have cannabis in their system? And sheepishly, one or two hands will go up. He said, everybody does, because we have an endocannabinoid system within our body.
Yeah.
What's in that plant is also in our body, and vice versa. I mean,
Yeah.
we need it.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding mothers
Yeah.
have cannabinoids within their breast milk.
Yeah.
And there's CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. The CB1 receptor is for your brain
Yeah.
and your immune system. The CB2 receptor, I believe, is for your liver.
Yeah.
And so those sorts of things are not known to the public.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do at Cannabis Health Radio is tell stories and try and bring in experts
Yeah.
to talk about it.
So I think that's probably the most important thing right now, is to get good, accurate information.
Yeah.
We're talking about competing interests. How about the drug companies themselves? When it almost seems that almost any illness or anything that people are suffering from can be helped by the use of cannabis. It's almost like you can almost take it from almost anything and improve the condition. Can you imagine how many drugs that they're competing with?
Isn't there Bill Maher in the U.S.? He holds up the sign, "Oh, pot! Isn't there anything you can't do?"
Well, it seems like in some ways, I mean, it's almost like a miracle drug for people, especially with chronic health conditions, chronic pain. That it really does seem to help, and it would be very, very, very beneficial with very few side effects. And that's the thing to realize, is that a lot of drugs the doctor gives you, it's like when you look at the ads on TV and they say, take such and such, and it's good for your high blood pressure. Then they go on for about a minute about all the things and all the side effects.
The story I told you earlier about the fellow in Ontario with liver cancer, he was on about 12 medications. And after taking cannabis oil, within 3 weeks, he was off all of them, including metformin, his diabetes medication.
Wow.
And so special interests don't want this known amongst the public.
Yeah.
Because if the public grabs a hold of this and embraces it and said, listen, our body needs this, their sales will decrease.
To a certain degree. I think it's always going to happen. And we see large pharmaceutical companies, once in a while they appear in the paper manipulating government decision making, and there's been a few scandals.
Whoa, come on, no.
And you realize that they really do have a sort of an inside track to the bureaucracy and to the ministers and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that could become a problem for moving forward, really, is when they have that sort of lobbying power there, that they're so closely associated with our government. It's very hard to pry them away from our government,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's no different at the federal level, at the provincial level, and even to a very lesser extent at the local level. Yeah.
Anyway, Ian, that's how fast 14 minutes goes by.
It was great.
Now, I just want everybody to go to the URL that I think appeared on the screen at one point or other. It's cannabishealthradio.com. It's pretty easy to remember. And
if they want to sponsor us, send me an email.
That's right. Send an email to info@cannabishealthradio.com, and Ian will be glad to reply. It's been a pleasure, Ian. I hope to see you back in the next year, and we'll be talking more about this.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Have a good day. And thank you very much, folks, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Citizens Forum. Today I have with me Rob Wixon. Rob is the president of the Gorge Tillicum Community Association, and And we're going to be talking about the McKinsey interchange and some of the issues that have popped up around that. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you for having me.
So now, look, we got this traffic jam, traffic problems in Victoria, you know, and we have this interchange going in, and we can see all that bad traffic out there. Shouldn't this be solving our problems there? Shouldn't that be the best thing?
I think there is a solution to our traffic problems. I don't think this is it.
Okay.
I think that we need to think a little bit more broadly than just trying to move cars differently. And what they've done here is they've offered one option, which is to have cars go through the intersection in and out of downtown smoothly without any stops. They have other designs around that, which is how to move cars in the left-hand turn, how to have them merge on from Mackenzie. But those solutions don't really do a lot for the long-term future of our traffic.
Yeah.
They don't really reduce cars, which is one of the goals we have, and they don't really improve transit a great deal.
Yeah.
There's some minor improvements to transit coming, but it's all retrofitted around the project.
Now, is there a lot of impact on the communities? Because when I drive out through there, it's kind of a little of a no man's land. It's a highway. It's fairly open all around there. So it's hard to tell what impact this will have on the local communities, because it's very hard to see them actually from the road.
So exactly. When you come into town from Langford, from West Shore, when you hit that corner at Admirals, that's the first stop at the urban boundary, if you will.
Okay.
The Gorge Telecom neighborhood is an old, 150-year-old neighborhood. It's even older than that by First Nation standards, but it's a grid street system, right? So if you stop the cars there, you're telling them that they've entered the urban environment.
Yeah.
So they have to behave differently. They're not freeway cars anymore.
Yeah.
Unless they go left, then they could be a little bit quicker going left towards Highway 17.
Yeah.
So to my mind, there's a good reason to have cars starting to slow down and starting to control their behavior in a different way from that point on.
Yeah.
And there's a good reason to have the cars funnel left smoothly without stopping. So those two goals, I think, should have been met in this design.
Now, hasn't that not been integrated? What are they calling this interchange?
Well, this is a loop interchange.
So it's not like a clover leaf. It doesn't have.
It's got one clover.
Oh, I see.
It's got one leaf with the clover.
Okay.
But what that does, and this is something we asked for right at the very beginning, was not to impact the natural environment.
Yeah.
Smallest footprint possible. So they instead chose the one design that had the most impact. And then they added to it by adding a second merge lane on the other side. So they've actually taken out more green space than we originally thought they might, even in the worst case.
Well, you know, it's been percolating, the discussion. I think I've been here since 1983. I think I've heard about this like not long after that. So there's a lot of discussion. I was always looking for the problem. I thought, okay, there's a traffic problem. We get jammed up here and there.
How many hours a day?
Yeah, this is it. You know, you got your hour in the morning, your hour in the evening, right? Now, for the people that are in that's a big hour of their day.
Sure.
But it seems to me that because, as you just mentioned, as you're getting in close to urban streets, other crossroads, a lot of things happening, you're not going very far anyway now. You're just basically edging your way to where you want to be in the city. Mm-hmm. So this highway change is just going to maybe move that congestion, if it does, maybe just a few more blocks.
So what the intersection is going to do is going to, first of all, move the congestion somewhere else, like Tillicum Road or further up Mackenzie. But it's also going to attract more vehicles, particularly from West Shore to downtown. So the Douglas Street corridor already is a multi-use corridor, is being planned to be a multi-use corridor. It's already fairly congested. You go look at Google Earth right now at this time of day, and you'll find that it's all red. It's all the way downtown because that's just the nature of the beast. However, we want to make it multimodal. We want to see more transit, especially rapid transit up and down Douglas. We want to see more bicyclists. We want to see more development that has people living along the corridor. But we're not getting that because they're trying to squeeze more cars, and nobody wants to put residents right next to all this car space.
Now, are they going to, in this design that they're proposing right now, are they allowing for light rail transit, for instance? Is there a way to integrate that into the design, or is that just an afterthought?
They say they've protected it. I've asked them to actually draw it into their drawings, and they won't.
Interesting. So they're not really addressing right-of-way issues and all that right now.
They're not making it a high enough priority. It should be priority number one is what we
Yeah.
want to see in the future, whether it be the future 5 years from now or 2 years from now.
Yeah,
We'd like to see that in the drawings today, but we're not getting that.
yeah,
What we're getting instead is a project that's designed to gather votes. And it's particularly
Yeah.
problematic for John Horgan, who is the NDP leader,
yeah,
whose riding is supporting the Mackenzie interchange.
yeah,
So if he comes out and speaks anywhere against it, anywhere along the line, or anybody in his caucus,
Yeah.
like Rob Fleming or Lana Popham, they will not speak against it publicly
Yeah.
because they will hurt their leader.
yeah.
And so it's a political game.
Yeah.
We
But do you think NDPers, like, is it that big an issue that a lot of NDPers are demanding to have this interchange? Do you think that they're really, taking care of a group
I think
of people?
voters in Langford are looking for
Yeah.
solutions to their traffic.
So even though it's not necessarily a solution, by offering something up creates a little bit of hope, and it might gain some votes. And the thing is, to me, is that because all this discussion went on for all those years, it seemed like overnight, bang, there was the decision.
That's right. We have traced back to the process and found
Yeah.
out that in April 2015, they did a lot of talking about this without talking to us, the neighborhood that's most impacted by
Yeah.
this. And what they did was they then did some work and thinking about it, and they went and announced it. They found the money, and they announced it. And once they announced it, then they started meeting with the communities. And even
Yeah.
then, it was not a real meeting. We went there. We created a task group in the Gorge Tilton
Yeah.
Community Association. We called it the Mackenzie Interchange Task Group. And we sat down ahead of time and did a 3-page document saying, here's the things we want to look at within this plan. And 3 important things. One was the land in the park.
Yeah.
We wanted any land that was being used in the park to be protected against this interchange. We also wanted the lands that are provincially owned in Cuthbert Holmes Park to be transferred in their entirety to Sandwich.
Oh,
Right? All the lands changed. And we wanted the LRT built into the plan now.
Yeah.
So the space for the LRT actually designated and built into the plan.
yeah.
What we got instead was 1.4 hectares of park space eaten up by the ministry. They're
Yeah.
going to trade us some scrub land they've got alongside the highway, which is right now is piled with dirt
Yeah.
that could flow into the river anytime.
Yeah.
And we have $450 payoff for a management plan within the park. Nothing else. It's very, very poor. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
no problem getting $2 million extra for the Shelburne Street corridor plan. I wonder
Yeah.
how that happened.
Well, you also wonder if you look at it carefully and you look at how these decisions were made, and obviously there's political implications. Now, is there a federal component to this?
Yes, $32 million worth.
32 million. Provincial is,
The rest.
which was around.
It's 85, so minus 32, about 53.
So, and there's no municipal governments kicking in anything.
According to the mayor of Saanich, there's no economic skin in the game for Saanich, which is wrong. Absolutely
Yeah.
wrong, because he doesn't understand economics. So our neighborhood is going to have impacts in this. So they're taking that traffic and they're going to move it to Tillicum.
Yeah.
So instead of being stopped at Admirals with no outlet,
Yeah.
they're going to be at Tillicum Road with 3 outlets: Admirals Road, Burnside exit, and Tillicum exit.
Yeah.
So now they're going to start to flow through our neighborhood whenever they get backed up.
And they're not really arteries that are designed for that level of traffic flow.
Tillicum Road is actually a mile long
Yeah.
from the corner,
Wow.
from the highway to Craigflower.
Okay, that's right.
So that's all it is. Yet it's a 4-lane wide freeway
Yeah.
that divides our neighborhood, hurts us when we're trying to get to shopping across the street.
Yeah.
We have to go down to crosswalks and that sort of stuff. It makes it more difficult for us to walk. Have you ever tried to walk on Tillicum Road?
Well, I mean, it's like a highway is like the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, that's right.
Even to get in a car and to get across it is a deal.
Yeah.
Try to walk.
Yeah.
Try to ride a bicycle, unless you're lucky and you're close to something that really is made for that. And it's so many communities have been threatened and destroyed by highways being smoked through them.
Absolutely.
And I think what's happening here is maybe the money came a little easy from the feds or something. I don't know who offered it up, but all of a sudden it happened, and now
Well,
we're dealing with it.
You know who was at the announcement for the original announcement in the summertime was the federal MP on the island.
Yeah.
I forget his name now, but because he's stepped down. But
A liberal.
No, no, he was a conservative MP
Okay.
at the time, because
Yeah.
this is before the last election.
Yeah.
And this is part of his electioneering, right? So he's
right.
here for the big announcement.
Yeah.
It's all political. It
Yeah.
has very little to do with sound traffic management. I'm very disappointed in the staff that they
Yeah.
didn't show leadership and show what they should have shown in terms of
Yeah.
how you do these things in the modern world.
Yeah.
Especially when we've got a really big change coming in our transportation infrastructure and our availability of types of vehicles.
Yeah.
They're changing. The accident rate's going to fall like mad. It's going to hurt me as a businessman, because
Yeah.
that's what I do, is I measure accident
Yeah.
costs. And it's going to change the way people drive, or people use cars, or even own cars.
Yeah.
In 10 years, the ownership of the modern automobile will start to decline rapidly.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a lot cheaper for you to just to dial up a car when you need it and pay for the minutes you use it only.
Yeah.
Instead of paying for storing your car 95% of the time.
Yeah, I'm watching it turn from a nice, beautiful car into
We
a
have this
rust
big
bucket.
fight about parking up
Yeah.
in downtown Victoria because of a couple of bike lanes.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute now. Those road spaces are paid for by the taxpayer on property taxes.
Yeah.
Doesn't the cyclist have as much right to road spaces as anybody else?
Well, when I first came here, I went to university for a couple of years and took my car and parked it in the backyard, and I couldn't drive it. I couldn't afford to drive it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of looking at it, and I had been driving for quite a few years at that point, and I thought, how am I going to survive? I thought, gee, really, am I going to park this car? Well, I parked it for 2 years. It was the best 2 years of my life.
Never missed it.
Never miss it. Life was very simple.
Yeah.
You know, the car, you got to take care of the car. There's tires and oil changes and all the other stuff that goes
right.
on. And, you know, you're kind of a little bit of a slave to them. And now I used to ride up to the university. I was coming from down around McKinsey, or down around the Hillside area. Mm-hmm. I could ride up and park my bike and be in class faster than had I driven. And I didn't know that until I started doing it.
I'm the same way coming from Gorge to downtown every day. My office is in Basson Square.
Yeah.
And as an economist, I look at those things when I chose where I lived, right?
Yeah.
I said, if I'm going to choose a place to live, I'm going to look at the places I need to be on a regular basis. Well, downtown was it. I could either live downtown with a young family. It wasn't a pleasant choice. And those days, housing prices were reasonably affordable, so I went for a house in Gorge. It's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the whole city, and yet we're being degraded by an intersection that's really not needed in the kind of design that's there.
So what do you think? Did you feel the consultation process was not, let's say,
it wasn't
complete?
a consultation, it was a sales job.
Okay.
So they brought in a huge team. One
Yeah.
day I went there's 25 people that were staff members and consultants, and they all had all the display boards up and their video screens, and they're selling everything. I went there with a little table and a couple of drawings to show them some alternatives, and I got a surprising amount of interest. And people saying, well, why don't we do that? It makes sense. But they wouldn't even entertain the idea. So the consultation piece that should have happened was before they announced it, before they even went to find money, they should have talked to the neighborhood most impacted about what the option could be that could be compatible for everybody and a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
We understood that the intersection needed some changes, some modernization.
Yeah.
And we knew what we could do with it. We looked at options and designs, and we knew that the outbound traffic needed to be released.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get to Tillicum Road and you get through that light, boom, you have no more intersections to deal with.
Yeah.
That was a good plan. We also knew that the left-hand turn was growing faster than the number of cars coming into town. So the amount of cars turning left at that intersection,
And wanting to head up Highway 17.
or up to the university, or even another way downtown, they're taking that exit. So we felt that that would have been better to have them with no lights, right through the Burnside corner, over to Highway 17, where they could go to
unimpeded.
Unimpeded. They could go to the airport, or they could go downtown, or they could go to all kinds of places from there.
Yeah.
We felt that was more important than releasing the traffic into town, because traffic going into town really needs to realize where they are. They're in an urban environment. Start behaving like you should as an urban vehicle, which is to slow down. We know how many pedestrians have been hurt in the last year. We know how many cyclists have been hurt in the last year. And it's all because of drivers who are driving cars.
Yeah.
It's not because a walker is wearing black.
Yeah.
It's because the drivers aren't paying enough attention.
And there's just so much going on. And I mean, I drive a service van every day, and I'm a cautious driver, and I'm surprised how close I get to people and things at times when I had no idea where they were at, especially in the dark this time of year. It's very hard to do that.
No pedestrian, no cyclist wants to get hit by a car because it hurts.
This is a good point.
Car doesn't get hurt
Yeah.
compared to us.
It's a small afternoon's inconvenience, but
right.
if you're a walker, you could be hurt for many years or killed.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
We want to continue monitoring what's happening with this interchange, and we're going to be following up on it. And if we could have you back in a few months
Anytime.
as we know what's happening there and looking at the developments, just see what really does come out of it. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that completes our segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back to Citizens Forum. Just like to take the opportunity to thank the Shaw staff and all the volunteers that make this show happen every week. It's a little bit of a miracle that occurs here every week. People may not notice, but we cobbled together this show on a shoestring budget, which is zero financing, and we basically every person that's involved in the show is intensely dedicated to bringing information to the public, with the public interest. And I'm forever grateful being able to have a chance to act as a host here, and it's been a great pleasure. So today we have with us Richard LeBlanc. Richard is the director of Woodwind, the Woodwind Farm Project. What is your title?
I think the fancy title is Executive Director.
Executive Director. Richard's been at this project for almost 10 years now, and basically Woodwind Farms is an idea that Richard had after seeing other models around the world that worked for taking people that were down in their luck and homeless perhaps, and helping them to find a way to become more productive members, more happy members of our society. So welcome to the show, Richard. And firstly, I'd like to ask you, let's just go over the history of Woodwind Farms a little bit so people can kind of have that picture in their minds. How did this all come about?
And first, thank you for having me on your show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure being here. Kind of the genesis on a couple of levels. First off, is just a dissatisfaction and uneasiness and irritation almost of seeing people on the streets. They're kind of wasting away. It's a wasted life. It's a wasted human potential, and a very strong feeling of that somebody needs to do something about it, that what we're doing isn't working, and that if nobody's going to do something in a very substantial way, then I guess I'm going to have to step forward with it.
Yeah, so you were working in this area with the provincial government, was that before this, or?
I had worked with another not-for-profit,
Okay.
and we were seeing neat results, and I just had a strong sense that a real impact could be had, but that we needed to do something differently.
Now, as you looked around for other ideas and how to maybe get off this treadmill or the cycle of homelessness and crime and drug addiction and all the other things, bad things that happen to people, and where they just seemingly can't break that cycle. What stimulated you into thinking that a new model would happen, and did you have other ideas from other people, or how did that come about?
Absolutely, and getting a sense that what we're doing isn't working or isn't working as well as it possibly could. I'd done some research, and I teamed up with Railroads University here locally, and we zeroed in on an organization called San Petriano in Italy.
What's that name?
San Petriano. I'll spell it for you.
Yeah.
S-A-N, and Petriano is P-A-T-R-I-G-N-A-N-O.
Okay.
And it's the world's most successful recovery center. And so as having a focus of people being successful in their recovery, of successfully putting homelessness behind them, these are the folks who have, over a 40-year period, worked with almost 26,000 addicts. and have a world-class 72% success rate. They're very solid in their numbers, and we've adopted their measures. The measures are sobriety and self-reliance, the ability to stay clean and sober, ability to get and keep a job. But how do you get there? They're the masters at it.
Yeah.
So all I did 10 years ago was essentially say we need to bring that model to our community. They're doing something right. They're doing something better than anybody else is. Let's try to adapt it to our Vancouver Island setting.
So what happens? Does someone approach you and say they're interested, or do you find through the agencies people that might be interested? How do you first make that first contact?
Yeah, they usually get in touch with us through frontline workers of other agencies,
Okay.
or the local detox center.
Yeah.
And a person can sometimes be in and out of that revolving door, detox revolving door 10, 20, 30, I'm told 50 and 60 times is not unheard of, and which is the very definition of insanity, of trying to do the same thing over and
Yeah.
over again and expecting a different result. But partway through, when a person starts to stabilize and get a little more clear-headed, and starts to talk about, what am I going to do next? And if they're interested in something like this, and we get the phone call when we begin an interview process,
Yeah.
introduce them to the farm, and let them know what they're getting themselves into, and try to gauge their sincerity. And we need to be working with folks with a strong desire for change,
Yeah.
and get roll up our sleeves literally and get to work.
Now, right now, you have a few people living on the farm. Are there other people that are involved that are living off the farm also?
As participants, no.
Yeah.
I mean, our staff and volunteers
Yeah.
are off the farm, but it's a 24/7 commitment
Yeah.
to being on the farm. And as the place to be doing the recovery, we guarantee and we do everything we can to ensure a clean and dry facility, no drugs,
Yeah.
no alcohol. They have a very stable and exceptionally stable existence. They have a warm, safe, dry bed. They get 3 healthy meals a day. Every day there's some program work happening. And every day they're meaningfully, purposefully involved in the day-to-day activities of our farm community.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key features.
Are you finding what age are you finding the people that come to you? Are they, younger, or are you finding that they're older folks?
I'd say the center of the bell curve is 25 to 35,
Okay.
but the range so far is 19 to early 60s, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes to the farm, do you kind of see what sort of skills they might have already, looking at some kind of a matchup for things that need to be done around the farm? How does it all happen?
Pretty much, right? And as a farm community, and community means everything has to happen
Yeah.
on the farm, from laundry to meals to dishes to carpentry work, electrical, plumbing, and then the farming itself.
Yeah.
We have 2 large greenhouses. We have livestock. We have a farm market.
Yeah.
So some retail skills. So at the moment, for instance, we have a terrific woodworker on site. We have a certified electrician.
Yeah.
We have a fellow kind of a general handyman, and we have then a whole other crew is totally focused on
Yeah.
the livestock and the greenhouses. They either come with a skill set that we, you're right, help
Yeah.
them find their niche on our farm, or they just kind of gravitate to something that's new to them, but that they're interested in, and then they develop a passion for it over time.
Well, this is a wonderful thing. I mean, farming. I grew up in a farming community in New Brunswick, and they had to know how to fix a tractor, and they had to know everything to do with a wide variety of things in order to make a living. And most farmers couldn't afford to have other staff there, so they had to learn all those things. So I really appreciate that how much there is involved in making any kind of a farm operation to work.
Farm life commands versatility, resourcefulness.
Yeah.
You're a plumber in the morning, you're an electrician, you're a heavy-duty mechanic, you're a painter, sometimes
Yeah.
all in the same day while tending to livestock and food crops. Literally in the very same day, and you just
Yeah.
got to figure it out, which I think is part of a foundational skill to be
Yes.
having a person that it's brought out of the person. I don't think you teach it, but you sort of bring it out of the person, because you're going to need that in life anyway.
Really,
Life is going to throw stuff to you. You're going to have to find that resourcefulness, that resilience. learn it here.
And that helps with the other the personal problems they're having or the struggles they're having.
Absolutely.
Now, are you accepting primarily people who have had a history of drug abuse, or are there people that just down in their luck, or people that just looking for a way? Can they go also to Woodland Farms, or?
Yeah, I mean, homelessness means a lot. A lot of,
Yeah,
well, if you have 1,000 homeless people, there's 1,000 different stories as to how they got there.
yeah,
A high percentage not only have an addiction, but quite likely a mental health issue,
yeah,
somewhat brought on by or compounded by the lifestyle anyway.
yeah,
If I told you, go spend the next 60 days outside in the cold, searching for food every day, and you're probably not going to sleep well, you're going to be eating at food banks, you're not going to be eating anything quality at all, and then shoot some drugs and or alcohol into your body every day. You tell me about your mental health condition, and it'll take less than 60 days, you're going to develop something.
I think your worldview might be altered.
Absolutely.
And believe me, I can see, especially with stress in our society, this demand to perform. Expectations are so high. The society is more complex now than ever before, with technology the way it is. There's a whole lot of ways that people can kind of get off track.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's a great model. Now, if you were to think about it, you say, for instance, if you take somebody who's been living on the streets, getting arrested 2 or 3 times a month, maybe ending up in an emergency ward a couple times a month, and always interacting with the emergency response people, and the amount of cost that must be, compared to getting somebody in a stable environment, in a safe home and stuff like that. But if you were to take, say, if somebody were in a treatment program or interacting with all the authorities that we have right now, can you compare costs between that individual?
Yeah, the numbers are very well known nowadays, and the numbers in Victoria are very consistent with any studies around Canada and throughout North America. So yeah, the cumulative costs of emergency services, policing, not-for-profits running shelters and food banks and such.
Yeah.
It fluctuates in the $50,000 to $60,000 per year per person in almost every city in North America, and Victoria is right in that range. Coming to Woodwind, our operating cost actually is in the $16,000 to $17,000 per year per person range. So there's immediate savings, and then they're off of that train wreck actually.
Yeah.
So that's an immediate drop. But the key though is that our goal again is self-reliance.
Yeah.
So a high percentage of our participants move on to being productive taxpayers essentially.
Yeah.
So $50,000 to $60,000 down to 16 or 17, down to paying taxes a high percentage of the time.
Yeah.
It's a huge cost savings just on the financial part, not the human level, but on a financial level, we're a huge impact.
That alone, if there's no other issues, if there were none other, that'd be enough to really make people understand that something good is happening here, and that people are going to have a chance. Now, you accept volunteers into your project?
Yeah, volunteers are a huge contributor to running our farm community. Sometimes people show up for a few hours a week, all the way to we have volunteers who come and live on the farm for months at a time, and we also have church groups and school groups who show up for these giant work parties, and we have anywhere from 20 to 200 arrive, and the expression many hands makes for light work. We personify that for these work parties. It's terrific.
So if you want to volunteer, I'm just going to have to wrap up, Richard. If you want to volunteer, don't hesitate to contact Richard at Woodwind Farms. I think we got the URL up a couple of times, how to contact you. I think it's a great thing to do, to bring the the citizens of the area in to see what's a wonderful job you're doing. It's a beautiful, beautiful farm. I drive by there often, and I just think always good thoughts about Woodland Farms, and you're bringing this back to life. This old farm is coming back now, and doing so many good things for people. And I want to thank you for doing that, Richard. And I know times are interesting, and you have your challenges with trying to really bring it to its full potential. And I hope you do all the best in that endeavor.
Thanks so much. Always a pleasure talking to you, Walt.
Okay, Richard. So that completes this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back to Citizens Forum, and our last guest for this week is Rick Hapgood. Rick has been very active with Fair Vote Canada, and I think you're the local president of Fair Vote Canada, or still are.
Yeah, Victoria, the Victoria Group.
And lots has happened in the last month or so around this issue, and so we brought Rick in, and we're going to quiz him a little bit about what's happened most recently, and where is this going in the future. Are we actually going to have any chance at having a fair electoral system? So welcome to the show again, Rick.
Thanks, Walter. Always good to be back.
I wish we had you back in more pleasant circumstances.
Well, it all depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
But, Trudeau in 2015 made a campaign promise. One of his main campaign promises was that he would replace the first past the post voting system that we use here in Canada.
Yeah.
And anyways, it's not looking very good for that. It was one of his main promises. Most likely, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people voted for him because of that.
Yeah.
And probably that, plus the environmental West Coast issues with the tankers and everything, that probably put him over the top as far as the majority goes.
Yeah.
So whether or not he's going to recoup from that, who knows? But so what he did was he created a committee, a electoral reform committee, and they went out and they had meetings all across Canada, and it was very successful. And what they came up with was a true document for Canadian history, something that's going to go into the record books for sure.
Yeah.
Out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of witnesses that came before the committee, which were people such as political scientists, professors, people from other countries, and they all talked about electoral systems. All right.
Yeah.
And outside of that, at the very end, 88% of them recommended proportional representation.
Yeah.
Huge. Super majority of the witnesses recommended a proportional representation system.
Right.
Okay. And then on top of the witnesses, there were just speakers, such as myself or Jack or you, or just ordinary street folk that has a passion for democracy and wants to see a higher degree of democracy here in Canada. And outside of the thousands of people that went right across the country before the committee, 87% supported proportional representation.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the Minister Monsef, who was responsible for this, just couldn't see a consensus across Canada for proportional representation, even though this information was recorded and put on her desk. She said, well, no, I don't see a consensus for proportional representation.
Yeah.
It just is. So we're going to create a survey. So they created this survey, and it's an online survey.
Yeah.
So that means that anybody in Canada can go online to the government website and take the survey. Now the survey has been dished by everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it be Conservative, NDP, Green, National Post, Globe and Mail, all the Post Media's papers, Maclean's, you name it. Every golfer in the prairies have said it's a terrible survey.
It was a public
doesn't make any
relations
sense.
exercise, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you say it's a public relations exercise?
Yes.
You know.
Well, what the survey is meant to do, is supposed to do, is to indicate values. It's all, values. And from these values, I guess they're going to try and figure out what kind of a electoral system to replace first past the post.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't get that, then they won't replace first past the post. So, anyways, what we're saying, Fair Vote Canada, which who I represent here in Victoria, what Fair Vote has done is it's asked political scientists to look at the survey and make recommendations. Okay. So if you go to My Canadian Democracy, mycanadiandemocracy.ca,
Yeah.
mycanadiandemocracy.ca, you go to that website, and that will instruct you and make suggestions on how you can fill out this survey in support of PR.
Yeah.
So it's a really good thing to do. So I suggest everybody getting on board.
Yeah.
Get onto the website and learn about the survey and take the recommendations of Fair Vote Canada, because it's just not Fair Vote Canada. It's political scientists that have created this.
Yeah, everybody, and Canadians are known for this, and is that we have a keen sense and a keen desire for fairness. Right when you're a kid playing ball hockey out on the street and deciding on who scored and all, we really desire fairness, and it cuts across all political stripes.
It does.
And I think it's something that this is not just going to blow away, in my view, and I think you're going to agree with that.
It's not going away.
That the desire for fairness is not being met for Canadians. And the other comment I would make, as a host, I shouldn't be making all these comments, they tell me, but the thing is, to me, is that the irony of this is that without these false majorities that, let's say, the Liberals now had, the Conservatives had before, they become dictators. And the thing that we want, we can't have because of the system that we have. So there you have it. They just don't want to change it because they no longer can call the shots. I think that's my view of it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you get a political party that has 100% of the power, and these guys, like you say, they think like dictators. They are arrogant. They're big-headed. They're people who enjoy the power over you scenario. They want to tell you what to do. You got no choice because it's just the way it is. You're either going to do that or get arrested. If you're going to stop Kinder Morgan, you're going to be probably arrested at the bottom line. So they don't throw a lot of other options out there. You see what I mean? It's just this is my word. This is what I'm going to do. You do it. Zero. That's it.
Well, I mean, in the political side of it, I mean, they're bringing this on fairly early. The Liberals have made those decisions on those pipelines, got the Site C dam going in.
Absolutely.
They're rah-rahing it on the tar sands in Alberta.
And natives' rights?
So, I mean, there's a trend here. There's a strong trend. And we're asking for is just to have a chance to participate in the decision. And I think Fair Vote Canada really has to be commended for that, because you've stuck at it. And this is a bump in the road, Rick, for you guys.
Yeah, I know.
But I hope you don't give up.
No. Actually, if anything, it's made most of the people I know more motivated because it's actually pissed them off. This is what's happening.
Well, Prince Edward Island, the provincial government decided to adopt a system.
36%. That's a whole.
Is that complicated?
That would take a little bit of. It's just too bad. It did pass, but the Liberal government that's in power doesn't want to give up the power.
There you go.
So they've shelved it, and they're going to add it to the next provincial election. So you're going to be able to vote for it again.
See, what the trouble is it doesn't seem that even though there's apparent, vast support for this idea, that there's no mechanism. You'd think at some point there's some tipping point where the government just says, what the heck? We just have to do this now. But we haven't seemed to have reached that yet.
No. Well, it's difficult because, number one, getting the word out on electoral reform has been very difficult. One of the things that we talk about online between each other, with the Fair Vote crew, right? Is that we haven't had any support at all from the mainstream media. This much support, right?
Yeah.
In fact, actually, it's like this,
Minus.
-0, okay? And also, we haven't had hardly any support at all from the alternate media.
Yeah.
Citizens Forum is the only place in town. I don't know of any other. I don't know anybody up at CFUV or Focus Magazine.
Yeah.
None of them are covering this issue.
Yeah.
And so I also blame the alternate media, the mainstream media, Tyee. The one that's really has been really good is the National Observer.
Yeah.
They have really come through big on this.
They're a relatively new
Good
organization.
for the National Observer.
National Observer, and I get it online, and yeah, they have
Great
articles on the
They
tar
are.
sands. Great writing there.
Absolutely.
Very good analysis.
Passionate.
Now, are you saying to folks, go and take this survey?
Oh,
Is it still
absolutely,
available?
But go to mycanadiandemocracy.ca first.
Yeah.
Don't go to the government website and take the survey because it's confusing.
Yeah.
You're going to get halfway through it, and you're going to go, what do they mean? It's just very confusing.
Yeah.
And so what we've done, what the political scientists have done, along with Fair Vote Canada, is create a website that you can go to, and it dispels all that survey, and it will suggest to you how to answer the questions in support of PR.
Couple more things.
Sure.
What do you think about they've been hinting out about maybe having a referendum on this, a federal referendum? Is that a good idea?
I'm okay with the referendum if it's done properly.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the referendum. I think that we'd rather not. We'd rather go directly into PR.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Now, do you think the Liberals have a mandate to go ahead and do this?
No, they don't. They only got 39% of the vote. They don't have any mandate at all. Zero. They don't have a mandate. They only got 39% of the vote. Who has the mandate on this is the Liberals, the NDP, and the Greens. Those voters have got a mandate. And even Conservatives. There are something like over 30% of Conservatives would like to see PR.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Conservatives, especially the ones that are under 45, very supportive. The ones that are over 45 don't want it.
There you go. That usually is a split there with the age
And same with the
groups.
Liberals.
Yeah.
The young Liberals,
Yeah. They're ready for it because, I mean, so many other countries have it. So we have to wrap it up for today and leave it at that,
that's pretty
Rick.
quick.
I know it's very fast. It's when you're on a time warp on this show. But of course, you're not going to get away without coming back and talking to us in the future about this.
No.
We're going to follow this story as
we'll
long
do
as
this
it's
in
interesting,
January, because this is an ongoing issue.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave it at that.
Okay.
So that's it for this week for Citizens Forum. We'll see you next week.